In today's NBA, there are quite a few Australian players in the league, with some being more standout talent than others. But it wasn't always like this, and it wasn't until 1991 when the first Aussie NBA player would play an NBA game. In 1969, the Aussie Kyle Rodwell became the first Australian player to be drafted into the NBA, where he was selected 217th overall by the Atlanta Hawks. That being said, he didn't suit up for a single NBA game in his career. And it wasn't until 1989, soon after, the NBA began to expand globally, until an Australian stepped onto the NBA floor for the first time ever. Although some Australians in the league were part American, there were still many that were full Aussie. With that said, let's go over every single Australian player that has played in the NBA, starting from the first Australian player ever. Welcome to Sportsphere. Let's get into it. The first Australian that set foot onto an NBA floor was Australian-American Leonard Copeland, after going undrafted in the 1989 season. He had short stints with the Philadelphia 76ers in the 89-90 season, and one with the Clippers in the 91-92 season. He averaged just 5 minutes per game and 2.4 points per game. Not a memorable career with much longevity, but the next Aussie that entered the league would make impact beyond his time. Luke Longley, a full Australian selected in the 1991 NBA draft by the Timberwolves, became the first Australian to be selected in the first round. His NBA journey began with a standout collegiate career at the University of New Mexico. However, it wasn't until the Chicago Bulls that he gained significant notoriety, contributing to 3 NBA championships alongside icon Michael Jordan. After the Bulls, Longley also had stints on the Phoenix Suns and New York Knicks before retiring after the 2000-2001 season. As for stats, as a primarily backup big man, Longley averaged 7.2 points, 5 rebounds, 1.5 assists and 1 block per game in 21 minutes over the span of 10 NBA seasons. Although far from a superstar, he paved the way for Australian basketball, solidifying his position as the most accomplished Australian player in NBA history in terms of championships to this day. And more importantly, Longley's shown many Aussie hoopers that getting into the NBA was possible from down under. 2 years after Luke Longley was selected, American-Australian Ricky Grace played his first NBA game in 1993, after he was drafted 4 years prior. That being said, after playing 3 games with the Hawks, that was it for him in the league, with his BBA career being short-lived. The next Aussie to see an NBA court was the undrafted point guard Shane Hill, who played 43 games for the Timberwolves in the 1996-97 season, but he didn't return to the league until 2003 with the Spurs, which was the last chance he got in the NBA. After that, he saw himself play exclusively in the NBL of Australia. And in the same year, also undrafted big man Mark Bradkey would have one short stint with the Philadelphia 76ers, but had no more NBA stints other than that, soon returning to the NBL, which paved the path for many Aussies that made it to the NBA. Following the last player to be drafted, Luke Longley, it was another 6 years in 1997, where a surge of Australian talent broke a 6-year dry spell in the NBA draft, with 4 players selected. Among them, CJ Bruton, Paul Rogers and Ben Pepper were late second round picks, but struggled to secure spots in the NBA. That being said, there was a standout, Chris Anstey, a 7-footer who gained attention for his MVP performance that led Australia to gold in the Under-23 World Championships. Picked 18th overall by Portland, he was soon traded to Dallas, where he played for 2 seasons before moving to Chicago. Although his NBA career was relatively brief, Anstey found continued success in Australia and Europe. In his 3 NBA seasons, he played over 150 games, scored 5 points and grabbed 3 rebounds in 14 minutes per game. As for the other 3 Aussies drafted, they never saw any time on an NBA court. But still, 97 was an impactful draft, and soon led to a surge of NBA players in the league. That being said, it wasn't until 5 years later in the NBA draft where an Aussie was again selected, with David Anderson selected by the Hawks 36th overall. And just like Anstey, Anderson also played just 3 seasons, having 1 season stints with the Houston Rockets, Toronto Raptors and New Orleans Pelicans, before he was out of the NBA after the 2010-11 season. He averaged around 12 minutes per game and didn't stand out as an Aussie NBA player. But another 4 years later, in the 2005 NBA draft, Andrew Bogut became the highest Australian draft pick in NBA history, and it wasn't even close. He was the most hyped up Australian basketball player ever. As a 7-foot big man coming out of Utah in the NCAA, it was no surprise when the Bucks took him first overall in the draft. He began his career quite well, and by his 3rd season, he was averaging 14 points, 10 rebounds, nearly 3 assists, and almost 2 blocks, despite being a decent big man that could even pass the ball quite well. His time in Milwaukee soon came to an end after almost no playoff appearances during that time. And after 7 seasons with the Bucks, he would soon be traded to the Warriors in early 2012. Despite being a good player, it was clear that the Warriors saw Bogut more as a secondary big man, where his minutes would quickly drop to the low 20s after joining the Warriors. And since the move, he was unable to average double digits in points ever again. That being said, letting his presence felt while he is on the court on both ends of the floor. He would soon become a great big man beside Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, creating great synergy with the team. And his first season with Golden State, he would help the team to their first conference semi-final appearance in many years. And in 2015, they would go even further and win the entire NBA championship. In that playoffs, Bogut averaged 5 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1 block per game in 23 minutes, playing the big man role alongside the undersized Draymond Green extremely well. Since then, although having another great campaign with the Warriors in the 2015-16 season, but unable to win the NBA Finals, he would soon be moved around the league. Firstly to the Cavs in the following season. However, an injury put him out for the majority of the season, before he was waived to the Lakers in the following year, only to move back to Golden State a year later. It was clear Bogut wasn't the same player that he was, seemingly unable to keep up with the physicality of playing so many games, where he would move to the NBL in 2019. In the 2006-2007 season, after Bogut was drafted, the Australian Luke Schenchner also saw the NBA floor after going undrafted. He had a season with the Bulls and then the Portland Trail Blazers, but that didn't turn into any long-term NBA success. 2 years later, in the 2008 NBA draft, Nathan Jawai was selected by the Indiana Pacers 41st overall. This led to having 2 successive stints with Toronto and Minnesota. But this was short-lived, and by 2010, he was out of the NBA. And the next season, one of the most exciting Aussie players entered the league, with Patty Mills being selected 55th overall by the Portland Trail Blazers. After 2 seasons of mainly bench minutes for Patty, he would soon show some serious promise. He was acquired by the San Antonio Spurs, where he spent most of his basketball career. At the Spurs, he became known for his energy off the bench and great shooting ability, also a very high IQ player. Although he wasn't a star on the Spurs, he was still a great contributor, and he often got hot when his team needed him the most. This saw him win a championship in 2014, playing alongside the Kawhi and Tim Duncan-led Spurs team. After a decade with the Spurs, averaging almost 10 points per game in around 20 minutes, he would soon say goodbye to San Antonio, join the Brooklyn Nets, and now he's on the Atlanta Hawks. Despite being a good NBA role player, it was when Patty Mills was representing Australia when he became that guy on the team, even leading Australia to a bronze medal in the 2020 Olympics. You may be surprised to hear that Kyrie Irving is also Australian, but yes he is. Being born in Melbourne, Australia, while his father was playing basketball in Australia, Kyrie has a dual Australian and American citizenship. We all know how good Kyrie Irving is. Selected first overall by the Cavs, he made immediate impact, showed his wizardry, won Rookie of the Year, and continued to improve, and even winning a championship with the Cavs in 2016. That being said, he would soon part ways with LeBron, joining the Celtics, then Nets, and now he's on the Mavericks with Luka Doncic. With probably the best handle in NBA history, the Australian citizen made a special impact on the game of basketball. Matthew Dellavedova went undrafted in the 2013 NBA draft, but still got picked up by the Cavs, and he proved to be a valuable role player on both ends of the floor for the Cavs. Delly is most known for his defensive capability, especially on Steph Curry in the 2016 NBA Finals, playing a great role in the Cavs' unlikely championship. And despite being picked up by the Bucks in 2016, he moved back to the Cavs for the 2018-19 season, then had a short stint with the Kings in 2022 and 2023, and recently returned to Australia to play in the NBL this season so far. And with almost one full decade in the NBA, there's no doubt that Delly has had a more successful career than many other Australian NBA players. As for Aaron Baines, he went undrafted in 2009 and didn't get an opportunity in the NBA until 2013 with the Spurs. He played a secondary role as a big man coming off the bench, even winning a championship alongside fellow Aussie Patty Mills with San Antonio. And after 2 seasons with the Spurs, he would have another 2-year stint with the Pistons, followed by another 2-year stint with the Celtics, then short stints on the Suns and Raptors. And just like Delly, Baines is now back in Australia playing in the NBL. But still, Baines embarked on a career that had more longevity than many other Australian counterparts. In 2014, hyped up to be the next star, Dante Exum was selected 5th overall by the Utah Jazz, coming out of the Australian Institute of Sport. Exum had a slow start for the Jazz, despite being given significant opportunity on the court. He showed offensive limitations with poor shooting, which was quite disappointing considering the hype. Furthermore, a significant injury in his 3rd season cut short some strides he made towards improvement, and by his 5th season with the Jazz, he was finally traded away during the season to the Cavs. After more mediocrity and lingering injuries, he would have a couple seasons in the EuroLeague, redeveloping his game, before returning to an NBA roster this season, picked up by the Dallas Mavericks, and has recently turned his NBA career around. Once considered the biggest bust of the draft class, almost 1 decade later, Exum has reinvented himself, averaging over 9 points, nearly 3 rebounds and 3 assists in 20 minutes, not to mention shooting 57% from the field and almost 48% from 3, playing a pivotal role alongside Luka Doncic. Despite currently dealing with another injury, it's safe to say Exum has officially saved his NBA career, and as long as he can maintain good health, he will see plenty more years in the big leagues. As for the 49th pick in the 2014 draft, selected by the Chicago Bulls, Aussie Cameron Bairstow would have 2 brief seasons with the Bulls, but did not show too much in the NBA to remain in the league. And like many other Aussies, his return to the NBL to play ball. Similarly to Aaron Baines, Joe Ingles went undrafted in the 2009 NBA draft, and wouldn't play his first NBA game until the 2014-15 season, after being signed by the Utah Jazz. And Utah found a gem with this pick, with Ingles playing a consistent role for the Jazz, after joining the team when he was already 27 years old. He played a bench role as a playmaker, and as his time in Utah continued, he soon even developed into a reliable 3-point shooter with the Jazz. And his best season with the Jazz saw him average over 12 points, nearly 6 assists, and 4 rebounds. He also found some playoff success with Utah, but nothing of significance. But still, Ingles had a long stint of 8 seasons with the Utah Jazz, before moving to the Bucks, and now as a veteran on the Orlando Magic. As for the 2016 number 1 overall pick, Ben Simmons, coming out of Melbourne, Australia, was compared to LeBron James and Magic Johnson in as early as his high school days. After missing the entire season he was drafted by Philly, he came back and proved why he was the first overall pick, before taking home Rookie of the Year. Becoming a top Australian basketball player ever seemed inevitable for Ben Simmons, and although he continued to improve past his rookie season, after securing a $177 million contract, Simmons may have gotten complacent, leading to his famous blunder in the 2021 Eastern Conference semi-finals against the Hawks. He soon moved to Brooklyn, and now only time will tell if his mindset can propel him to NBA stardom once again. But there's no doubt that Ben Simmons is one of the most gifted Australian basketball players in history. As for the 2016 10th overall pick, the Sudanese Australian Thon Maker was selected by the Milwaukee Bucks. He came straight out of high school into the NBA, and that may have been his exact downfall. Although he showed signs of ability on both ends of the floor, after a while in the big leagues, it soon became clear that his physicality was lacking, and he'd often get bullied by bigger players in the NBA. Although he showed some good three-point shooting ability, his finishing closer to the rim was quite poor for a big guy, and this soon led him to move from the Bucks to the Pistons. After 3 seasons with Milwaukee, and after 2 seasons with the Pistons, he would have one more short stint with the Cavaliers before he was out the NBA for good. And now he's playing for the Chinese Basketball Association as a 26-year-old. In the following 2017 NBA draft, Jonah Bolden was selected 36 overall by the Philadelphia 76ers as an Australian-American player. And after playing 44 games in his rookie season with the Sixers, he would play just 7 more games with the Suns and the Sixers in the following year, until he was out of the NBA, now playing in the NBL. And just like Thon Maker, the next Aussie to enter the league was Mangok Mathiang, also a Sudanese Australian player. He went undrafted in the 2017 NBA draft before the Hornets gave him an opportunity on the big stage, but he only played in 4 games, now back in the NBL also. Deng Adel was also a Sudanese Australian player. He went undrafted in 2018 before playing in the 2018-19 season with the Cavs, and then even the Raptors. But again, he also had a short-lived NBA career, and the 18-19 season proved to be the last time he was in the NBA. Another Aussie to play in the NBA with a very short career was Ryan Broekhoff. Broekhoff finally entered the league in 2018 after going undrafted 5 years earlier. Although he showed some ability as a good shooter, his lack of defense and size proved to be a bigger issue on the NBA level, where although he averaged 40% from 3, scoring 4 points per game, he played a very minor bench role with the Mavericks from 2018 to 2020. But for the following Aussie that entered the big leagues, he's had a much more successful NBA career so far. With the American Aussie Matisse Thybulle, a lengthy wing player known for his defensive prowess, was selected 20th overall by the Celtics in 2019, but quickly traded to Philly. And it wouldn't be long until Thybulle made a name for himself as an elite and unique defender, earning NBA All-Defensive Second Team honors in just his second season. His ability to disrupt opponents and contribute offensively has made him a valuable asset for the 76ers. And now in the Portland Trail Blazers, Matisse is developing with a young team, and the future looks pretty bright in Portland. Although Thybulle is a great perimeter defender, his offensive ability still has a lot of potential for improvement. He has career averages of just under 5 points, 2 rebounds, and 1.5 steals, shooting 44% from the field and 34% from 3. But there's no doubt he'll have quite a long NBA career, mainly due to his elite defensive ability. In 2019, the Australian Isaac Humphries would also join the NBA. Humphries went undrafted in the 2017 NBA draft before joining the G League, and had one NBA stint with the Atlanta Hawks, where he played his first NBA games. However, he played just 7 games and did not secure any long-term role. Also previously going undrafted, Mitch Creek, one of the top players in the NBL, has also had a short stint in the NBA, which did not last. Creek went undrafted in 2014 and didn't get the NBA call-up until 2019, signing 7-day contracts with the Timberwolves and Nets in 2019. But that was it for Creek in the NBA, now back dominating in the NBL. In the following 2020 year, Josh Green was the only Aussie to be drafted, after being picked up 18th overall by the Dallas Mavericks. Now in his 4th season, Green has solidified himself as a reliable 3-and-D role player for the Dallas Mavericks, combining with Dante Exum to help out Luka in Dallas. He has career averages of 6 points, 50% from the field, and almost 38% from 3, with almost 3 rebounds and 1.5 assists per game. And considering the improvements over the years, it'll be no surprise to see Josh Green have a long and prosperous career in the NBA. 2018 undrafted Will Magnay also saw the NBA court during the 2020-21 season, where his two-way contract with the Pelicans saw him enter the league, but played in just one NBA game. A short career to say the least, but he still secured himself some bragging rights, now being back in the NBL. The next Aussie to enter the league was Josh Giddey, after being selected 6th overall in the 2021 NBA draft, who became the highest drafted Aussie since Ben Simmons. And so far, now in his third season, he's proven to be all he was hyped for, proving to be a great playmaker, good shooter, and overall great fit for the young Thunder team. He had his best individual season in his sophomore year, averaging almost 17 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists per game. Now, despite his stats dropping this season, the young OKC team have exceeded expectations as a collective, and Josh Giddey's addition and development has been a great contributor to their success. As for Jock Landale, the 2021-22 season also saw his first appearance on an NBA floor, after going undrafted in 2018, where he was picked up by the San Antonio Spurs, and he quickly showed good impact for the Spurs, showing potential as a good backup big man. He was then picked up by the Phoenix Suns, playing very good basketball, where he averaged 6.6 points and 4 rebounds in just 14 minutes per game with good finishing ability. And this secured him a $32 million contract over 4 years, now playing a similar role with the Houston Rockets, despite having a down year so far. As for 8th pick of the 2022 NBA draft, Dyson Daniels became the next Aussie to see minutes on the big stage. Selected by the Pelicans, despite showing some signs of potential so far, he hasn't gotten significant opportunity on a star-studded lineup in New Orleans. And only time will tell the potential of the young guard, although a change of scenery on a different team might be necessary to see more improvement for Dyson Daniels. As for undrafted Xavier Cooks, the 2022-23 season saw him play his first NBA games, but again, he played a total of just 10 games with the Wizards before he went to the NBL, proving not to be adequate for the NBA. Last but not least, with the latest Australian to see NBA minutes, Duop Reith, who is of South Sudanese descent. He went undrafted in 2018, but it wouldn't be until 5 years later until he was given a chance with the Portland Trail Blazers in the NBA, and he quickly showed his ability as an experienced, lengthy player who was also versatile. In almost 40 games this season, he's averaged under 18 minutes, but scored over 9 points per game and 4 rebounds, shooting almost 48% from the field and 38% from deep. He's taken the opportunity in the big leagues so far very well, and hopefully he'll have a long career as a hard-working professional in the NBA. And that's it for the video. Every single Australian NBA player that has played at least one game in the NBA. Although it was rare for Australian players to be in the NBA a couple decades back, but now it seems like almost every single season we'll see a fresh Australian player play minutes on the NBA floor. Anyways, who's your favourite Australian basketball player? Please let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching Sportsphere, and we'll see you in the next video.